Hey lovers, Anthea here. So tonight I want to talk about healing the mother wound. I had two really powerful sessions tonight with clients, and I wanted to I wanted to talk about the importance of healing the mother wound and how it can set you free and how it can heal your romantic relationships, your relationships with your children. Yeah. So if you're jumping on and you're happy to, drop me a little hello so I know you're here. So something that, this session I had today with my client, it was so powerful. She had so many aha moments in it. And it was, I said to her, I have to go and do a live about this. And with your permission, of course, I have to share with everyone how we show up as the teenager and how it affects our relationships. And I'm just trying to figure out the best way to start this. Hey, Hillary. Hey, Jamaris. Hey, Michelle. So usually with mother or father, right? You can really use this with mother or father because some people grew up without a mother, right? They grew up with a father who was the mother and the father. So what happens is if you have a troubled relationship with your mother, yeah, and it's something you've been working on healing for a really long time, or it's something you avoid doing, you avoid working on the relationship you have with your mother, then this video is hopefully going to really help you. Now, something that happens unconsciously is that if we have a troubled relationship with our mother, when we see her or our father, when we see them, what happens is we drop into what I call the teenage archetype. We drop into the teenager, okay? And often, if we have a troubled relationship with our mother, often it's because our mother doesn't have the emotional depth to be able to hear us or to see us or to hold us as we so deeply desire to be held and heard and acknowledged. And it's not because they're a bad person or they don't want to, but it just could be because perhaps their wounds are so deep and their level of emotional maturity is not where yours is at. Okay? And so what happens is we can, when we show up as the teenager, which is defensive, because we're going to protect ourselves, because let's say your mother's done some stuff to hurt you, right? Then automatically you would be going into a defense mode when you're around her. Your body's got its own defense mechanism and you've got your own emotional defense mechanism. So you become what would appear to be avoidant or dismissive or not interested and even harsh or rude towards them. So when that happens, you're probably triggering your mother's wounds. Probably she has abandonment wounds or disregard wounds or whatever wounds she's got, right? So now we have, and if she's triggering you, well, now we've got two people who have triggered the hell out of each other and she's probably dropping into her teenage wound, and we now have two teenagers in adult bodies trying to communicate. But often it doesn't work like that, right? It leads to more turmoil, more destruction, more toxicity, right? So it's really hard for anyone to hear anyone when you are deep in your wounds, right? And so the point of this live is to invite you to have a look at where you were showing up like the teenager, yeah? And it takes a great level of self-awareness for you to be able to catch yourself in the moment and be like, oh, sugar, I'm showing up like the teenager. I'm showing up in my 5-year-old abandonment wound. I'm showing up as the wounded adult, whatever it is, right? It takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to do that in that moment. But if you can think about how you show up when you're around your mother or your father, and notice if you're showing up as the teenager or the empowered adult, and then create a shift and change that dynamic, you can completely transform the relationship you have with your mother or your father. And for my clients who work with me, I say to them, do it for you, right? This isn't about forgiving anyone. This isn't about setting anyone free or whatever it is. I mean, ultimately, yes, I do encourage that, but sometimes the pain is too deep and the wounds are too strong to be able to forgive someone. So I say to them, you decide what you're going to do with that. But for you, because you're here and you're doing the work, it's your responsibility to step up and be the empowered adult and lead the way, because someone's got to do it, right? And if you're here and you're doing the work, well, it's going to be you. Otherwise, you're choosing to remain stuck in this toxic dynamic with your mother, okay? So this is what I encourage them to do. I encourage them to show up as the empowered adult, okay? And you know what that often looks like? It often just looks like being really kind and interested in the other person and curious about the other person. Because ultimately, everyone likes to talk about themselves. Everybody wants to be understood. Everybody wants to be accepted and loved as they are, even if it doesn't match how we want them to show up, right? So what does that look like? Well, that looks like I've got to heal my inner teenager who thinks that I need to be protected, who is defensive. And then I have to empower myself to show up in a kind and authentic way, right? It's really hard to respond in a mature way when you have a wounded teenager still, yeah? And think about what teenagers do. They don't like being told what to do. And often when we show up as the teenager in our teenage archetype, our parents treat us like a teenager. They tell us what to do. They tell us what we should do with our children. They question us. They interrogate us. They ask too many personal questions, right? That's what they do. Because it's all about the energy, guys. So when you show up energetically as the wounded teenager, you're going to have a parent telling you what to do, right? So we want to start showing up as the empowered adult. Again, it's all energy. You don't even need to have a conversation with them about it. The minute you change your energy and you set your boundaries, your energetic boundaries in place, they will feel that and they will show up differently. Okay? Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to think about how we're showing up, create a lot of self-awareness around how we're showing up, try to be kinder, and that looks like, how are you? How was this? I'm curious to know, why did you do that? Or why do you feel like that? Right? But be kind, even if that person has brutally hurt you. If you have to have that person in your life, it will benefit you dramatically to show up as the empowered adult. You don't have to forgive them, but you do have to show up in a mature way, because otherwise then you're choosing to be toxic, okay? So when you do that, it's gonna feel amazing. It's probably going to be awkward. You're probably shaking your boots initially when you do it, or you might feel nervous that there's going to be confrontation again. But it's not until you start doing that and practice it that you're going to figure out how to do it even more and better and better and better. Okay? And the other thing too is to think about not just how you show up, but how does it affect the other person? How is how I'm showing up affecting the other person? Am I being nice or am I being rude? Am I being mean? Am I being avoidant? Often teenagers are avoidant, right? They don't want to look at that. They don't want to look at you in the eyes. They're not nice. They're moody. They've got attitude problem, right? So how would that make someone else feel? You know, this is what you ask. This is what you have to ask yourself in any time you find yourself in not pleasant situations and relationships. Am I easy to be around? Am I making it easy for this person to be around me right now? Yeah? You might actually surprise yourself. When you change how you show up energetically, the other person might surprise you too. Yeah? They will. They will change the way they show up around you. Hey, Catherine. Hey, Amy. So Amy's just saying, I find it really hard to get past how I was treated by my father. I can't forgive him and he's never said sorry to me about anything. So I just don't acknowledge him at all. Okay. It's really hard, right? I know that what I'm asking can feel almost beyond impossible. I'm asking you to be nice to someone who has brutally hurt you, okay? But not for him, for you. To set yourself free from the chains that bind you to this connection you have to your pain from the past. Yeah? Because what's happening is you're stuck in this loop. He did this to me, he did that to me, right? We want to get those thoughts out of your head. Because think about it, Amy, think about what happens when you are stuck in a loop of pain and mental turmoil and not forgiving. And you don't have to forgive, right? But you have to accept that that's what happened, right? And you have to begin to move forward. And this is what I call like an emotional detox. You have to detox your emotional state so that you can become a more empowered person. Because it is not serving you sitting here stuck in a loop of pain. It is hindering you. It is lowering your vibration. It opens you up to more experiences like that. Okay? You want to heal your father wound so you can heal the relationships you have with men. And it's got nothing, your dad does not have to be involved. You do that by doing the inner work on yourself, okay? And then you show up as the empowered adult. And you be kind to him. Or you at least acknowledge him to begin with a hello, how are you? Not for him, for you. Right? So you can walk away and be like, even though someone treated me like that, I found it within myself to be the bigger person and to show up in my own integrity and treat everyone with respect, regardless of how they've treated me. For me, for my energetic state. Does that make sense? My parents don't want to acknowledge anything that ever happened. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier, Amy. For a moment, I want you to think that they feel bad for what they've done, okay? They have shame around how they treated you. And it's true, they have this shame around how they treated you, but they do not have the emotional maturity or the emotional capacity to face you, to even face what they actually did to you, okay? Otherwise, they would have come forward and apologized to you. So Amy's saying, I've accepted that it has happened, but I can't forgive him. It took years to accept what happened, but I can't ever talk. Oh, I can't see what else you've written. It's not letting me. Oh, I can't ever talk. It took years to accept what happened, but I can't ever talk to him. Okay. All right. Look, at the end of the day, right, you decide what you do. okay? I'm talking about if you are wanting to end the internal turmoil, yeah? You don't have to talk to anyone ever again. But if you see him, like if you see him out, if you see him at family functions and you're ignoring him and avoiding him, I want you to think about what that's doing to you internally, right? It's really tricky. And I know what I'm asking, and I said this to my client today, I know what I'm asking you is very, very difficult. It's a really hard thing to be kind to someone who's abused you, attacked you, manipulated you, not protected you when you needed to be protected. I understand that. It is really, really, it's a really hard thing to do. But I'm suggesting you do it for you. Okay? For you. And you don't have to forgive anyone. I said to her, you don't have to forgive her. But next time you see her, show up as the empowered adult. So what would the empowered adult do? Not the wounded child. What would the empowered adult do? Yeah, and some people, it's best you never see them again so you can move on with your life and you don't get triggered, you don't get your wounds triggered. So if you're seeing him, Amy, and it's activating your wounds over and over again, and it's sending you into this loop, right? Then you got to ask yourself, why am I allowing myself to be triggered like this over and over again? Is it a sabotage program that I'm stuck in? How is this serving me? Because everything we do or do not do serves us in a negative or a positive way, right? Does that help? Hey, Eddie. So let's say you can accept that your parents know that they hurt you, right? For everyone else who's watching, you can accept that you can accept that your parents know that they hurt you, but they don't have the courage, they don't have they have too much pride to acknowledge how it's made you feel. And perhaps they don't, right? Let's say they don't. Let's say they don't know how it made you feel. Let's say they think you're over-exaggerating. Let's say in their eyes and through their heart, they don't believe they did anything wrong. Then there's nothing you can do to convince that person that they hurt you. There's nothing you can do. If that's what they believe, and you're trying to convince them that they hurt you and all you're doing is banging your head against the wall. And the reality is that acknowledgement that you want from them, that validation you want from them, you have to give it to yourself. You have to say, oh, that's really sad that happened to you. I'm sorry that happened to you. We were just a kid. That shouldn't have happened to you. Right? And I know we want it, right? We want that confirmation, we want that approval, we want that validation. But it's a much more empowering process when you give it to yourself. And I can assure you that even if you got it from them, it probably wouldn't feel like it's enough, right? So you start acknowledging the little you who was hurt and wounded. Yeah? So let's say you accept that. You accept that they didn't have the capacity to admit it, and you heal your inner child and you decide, I want to move on with my life. I want to have healthy relationships with women or men. I want to heal this wound, my mother wound or my father wound. And you start showing up as the empowered adult. And you just are kind. That's what the empowered adult is kind and treats people with respect. That's all I mean. I don't mean you have to put all the effort in the relationship. I don't mean you have to spend all this time with them. I don't mean you have to have a deep and intimate relationship with them. I just mean you show up in a respectful and kind way. It will change the dynamic you have with them. And then you'll magically heal the relationship you have with your children and the relationship you have with men or women in a romantic sense, okay? And yes, again, I will just say that it is a very difficult thing to do, but this is why it's so important to heal our past and try to see people through the eyes of love, because I do believe that we're all born with pure hearts. until we get tampered with, whether it's emotional, physical, psychologically, whatever. And then we have these wounds. And that's how people hurt other people, because they have this murderous rage within them, or they have this inner child that's angry, right? It's really hard when you get triggered to stop yourself from doing something violent, or stop yourself from saying something. And that's why for us, it's really important to heal our wounds, yeah, so that we can show up as the empowered adult. Every time someone triggers us and we want to react, right, we stop ourselves from reacting, we disconnect. That's really the first step. And we start working on our wounds and our triggers. Yeah. And then we don't need anything from anyone. We don't need an I'm sorry from them. We don't need them to do anything. We don't need them to do anything, because we've healed ourselves and we're showing up as our best self, regardless of who's in the room and how they have treated us, right? So, something that I want you to think about is, you can't, let's say you're aggressive towards your mum. And it's not you, it's younger you. It's like the 6-year-old you. Yeah. It's still a part of you that you need to heal. She's not going to change. And if you continue to behave like that because you're waiting for her to change, you're choosing to behave like that. You're choosing to remain like that. Does that make sense to everyone? So, hey, Ainsley. Yes, watch the replay. I think you'll really get a lot out of this live. So Amy's saying, whoa. I do talk to my mum respectfully sometimes. I feel I would be better off not talking to them. I used to be so angry about it and have violent dreams and thoughts, but like I said, I accept the situation. Okay, Amy, so if you feel that it would be better off you'd be better off not talking to them, disconnect and heal. Heal whatever's going on inside of you. Because what happens is if you're in your wounds and you keep seeing these people or talking to them, they keep triggering and activating your wounds, it's not healthy. It's not looking after yourself. Yeah. And so what you have to do is disconnect and heal. And when you step out of your wounds and you heal yourself, that's where you can be like, oh, maybe I can talk to them now. Or I'm still going to choose to not talk to them because I'm better off when I'm not talking to them. I'm more happy when I'm not talking to them. And that's okay too, right? You got to do what's best for you. But heal. Heal so that you're not, the past isn't still affecting you anymore. So Catherine says, calm and kindness. Don't take on the bad energy of others. Step back and have an outsider's perspective. Do what's best for you in the moment. Yeah, and this is why I say to people, if someone's triggered you and they're not going to hear you, then say, I've got to go now. I'll call you later or whatever, right? Or you remove yourself from the situation. Because when you react from your trigger, it disempowers you. And then you feel bad later on, right? Hey, Ben. Okay. So does that help? Another thing parents can do when you show up as the teenager is they can try to control you and manipulate you and take advantage of you. Yeah? Because teenagers, they don't want to be controlled. They don't like being controlled. Right? They want to be left alone. They don't want to talk. Right? So think about that. Hey, Willow. So, any questions before I go? I think, Amy, you're doing an amazing job. Right? I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and your story with us tonight. It's really hard to, and this comes into the suspicious archetype, which I talk a lot about in my work. It's really hard to not be suspicious moving forward that people are out to hurt you or manipulate you or attack you, because the people who should have loved and protected you as a child, if they're the ones that hurt you, it's really hard to then trust other people. Yeah? And without trust, it's really hard to have healthy relationships. So I just want to honour you, Amy, for sharing with us and for being in the position you're in and you know, having these experiences that don't sound pleasant at all. You know, I honour you for sharing that with us and for being here and listening to what I have to say, yeah? And also, it takes courage to share that stuff. It really does. And so keep going, keep honouring you, keep doing what's right for you, keep healing little you, yeah? Because eventually you will be free from it. So guys, I hope this live has helped. If you ever do have any questions or you want to share something privately, please just send me a message. I'll reply as soon as I can. And I'm sending you guys so much love. Bye.